Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna Van Veen. This is the second Johanna Van Veen book I've read. It's her second book. That's why last year I read her debut, My Darling Dreadful Thing. That's a great book. Gothic horror. It has a lot of similar elements to this book. You can definitely tell Johanna Van Veen has a style. You can tell she has themes she really likes. You can tell there are subjects she really likes. This was definitely different. We have different characters and we're introduced to them at a different point in time with like a slightly different setting. I don't know where we are. I think we're in like 1800s Copenhagen. This author is Dutch. All of the characters have Dutch names, but like I think they're just normal names. But the audiobook narrator pronounced them correctly, so everyone has funky names here. So our main character is Lucy, and she has a twin sister, Sarah, but it's Sarah, and her husband, Michael, instead of, I'm assuming, just Michael. There's a guy named Arthur, who I'm going to guess is Arthur. There's a character named Mrs. Van Dyke, but with the accent, it's pronounced like Van Dyke, and the way this narrator says it, it sounds like Mrs. Van Dyke. Incredible name. Loved that. She was not a Van Dyke. She was just a straight woman who was kind of stuffy and stuck up. But anyway, that's completely irrelevant. I'm not even really going to mention that many names all that much. But I enjoyed listening to the audiobook narrator. The audiobook narrator gives a good performance. Like, she really comes out swinging in this, like, first section, which is a letter that Sarah, I am going to have to say that name. I'm just going to say Sarah because I'm American. So Sarah is a woman who is losing her goddamn mind, and she is writing her twin sister Lucy this letter, and she's lost it. And she's sort of frantic and desperate and crazy. And the narrator gives a good performance of this. The rest of the book isn't in that tone, and therefore the narrator doesn't get a chance to act in that way. But she does do a good job, and there are some moments of heightened drama where the narrator really goes for it. This was a good audiobook narrator. She was giving. Her role was she was doing her role. She was milking this. She was doing this to the best of her ability, giving it her all. Give her an award or something, probably. Maybe she'd lose to another book with, like, more drama like that, where the actor has a chance to really show their chops. But whatever. I don't know why I'm talking about that. I'm not an audiobook narrator expert. I'm not a what is that called? Voice actor? I'm not a voice actor. I don't know what it's called. So anyway, we have Lucy is our main character, our main point of view character, our only point of view character. She is getting letters from her sister. Her sister's recently gotten married and moved away. I mean, she got married like several years ago, but they're living apart for the first time in their lives, really. They miss each other. They're very close. And Sarah's husband is pretty wealthy. They're well-to-do. They have servants. They're on this big land, and they exhume a bog body, which is another major theme in My Darling Dreadful Thing. So Johanna Van Veen clearly has a thing for bog bodies, which I guess this happens in this area where people were murdered and thrown in the bogs, or like committed suicides in the bogs. But anyway, their bodies go in the bog and they don't disintegrate in the same way that they normally do because they're submerged and like preserved. So they dig up this dead woman, and basically it starts to consume Sarah's life. They're working with a doctor and like some researchers who are doing medical examinations on the body and like discovering like how she died, how old the body is, yada yada yada. She's really interested in that, but then she starts to have like dreams about the bog body and like starts to go a little crazy, and you can tell that like the bog body is responsible in some supernatural way. And she starts to get sick, not just mentally but also physically, and so her husband Michael sends Lucy a letter asking her to come visit because, like, her sister's dying. And this book has a lot of twists, and I'm gonna spoil them because I want to. And I kind of just want to recap the plot of this book because it was really cool and really fun, and all of the things I had to talk about are, like, directly related to spoilers. So, like, this video is gonna have all of the spoilers. If you're interested in this book, you should go read it. It's very well written. It's a 5-star read. Maybe, like, a 4.5 stars. I'll get into, like, the ending that I didn't, like, quite love, but it's a very good book. If you want to read it, you should go read it. And I don't really think you should go in with spoilers. I mean, you can, if you want. that's your life. But I'm glad that I didn't have spoilers going into this, because I just kept liking it more and more and more. Like, every time a twist happened, I was like, that's cool, I did not expect that. Like, raises the stakes even more, goes in a totally different direction. It's cool. This is a good book. Go read it. And, I mean, keep listening if you want a bunch of spoilers. So Lucy gets there, and Sarah is, like, on her deathbed, very sick, hasn't eaten, but is ravenously hungry. And she keeps talking about the bog woman, and, like, this woman's, like, following her, or, like, talking to her. She's, like, preoccupied with the bog woman, and is, like, convinced the bog woman is coming after her. And twist number 1 that I didn't expect, Sarah dies. Didn't see that coming. I thought this would be a thing where, you know, they save her. I thought it would be like a ghost story. The ghost of the bog woman is haunting her and, like, latching onto her and draining her life force. But it's not that. So I like the supernatural element of this. It's not quite predictable, and it's not really what you think it's going to be going in, or at least it's not what I thought it was. But I think there's a lot of twists and turns here that defy your expectations of whatever this is. This isn't a classic ghost story. It's not a vampire story. It's marketed as a vampire story. I'm gonna rant about that later. But anyway, Sarah dies, and I didn't expect that. And then the other thing I didn't expect is that she comes back to life. They are burying her. She is locked in the casket, and Lucy starts hearing some tippy taps on the casket, and she thinks she's going crazy because madness does run in their family. They had an aunt who went mad and was also gay. That's not relevant, but it is. It's kind of relevant to this channel. But she convinces this doctor who really likes her, Arthur. I'm gonna call him Arthur. I don't know how his name was spelled because I listened to this on audiobook. Maybe it's like Arthur. That it just doesn't sound right in an American accent, so I'm gonna call him Arthur, I guess. Or the doctor. So she convinces the doctor to help her open this casket, and Sarah's alive. She smells like a corpse. She kind of looks like a corpse. She does not look good. Again, she's been sick forever. She's been dead for like a couple of days, I think. And she just sits up and she's hungry. She keeps saying she's hungry, and she keeps biting people. Now everyone just thinks she's still very sick and very crazy, and so they just kind of explain all of this away with madness. For the first part, at least. But Lucy is doing some research into the bog body because she knows how preoccupied Sarah was with it, and they start finding the identity of who the bog body was and why she was killed, and they think she was like a revenant and like changelings. And I don't know if this is like a Dutch sort of folklore thing, if there's a lot of stories about this. I don't know. But we get some interesting lore stuff about revenants and changelings. And people who seem to be people that they are, but not really. People who sort of disappear and come back weird, or start acting strangely, and how there's a small history of this. And most people have dismissed it as folklore, or, you know, scary stories, or people making things up, or mistaking madness for something supernatural. But Lucy comes to realize that this Sarah isn't her Sarah. Exactly. So she starts calling it Not Sarah. And at first, Not Sarah is, you know, adamant, no, I am Sarah. And then the veneer pretty quickly slides away. She's like, how'd you know? How'd you know that I wasn't really Sarah? And then you're like, oh shit, like this isn't Sarah. But it also kind of is. So basically this is a parasite. This bog woman had a parasite trapped within her that like took over her body. And there's a thing with blood, I think, where Sarah accidentally ingested some of the bog woman, like while they were exhuming her. I don't remember. Something about being in contact with the bog woman. She basically got infested with this parasite that slowly killed her and then took over her corpse. But the parasite has access to all of her memories and emotions, and basically is Sarah, and like knows all of Sarah's experiences, genuinely loves Lucy as her twin, and also genuinely loves this other lady. So Sarah's a lesbian. She's married to a man, but she's sleeping with her husband's like downtrodden cousin, who they all kind of look down on because she had some traumatic experiences that were not her fault. But whatever, she's having an affair with her husband's female cousin, and so she's a lesbian, and so this parasite creature, Not Sarah, is still Sarah, and still feels these emotional connections to these certain people, and understands them and knows them and has all of these memories with them. So Lucy sees this creature that is not quite her sister and has killed her sister and has a taste for human blood and keeps biting people. But it's not just human blood. Like, she wants to eat people. She wants meat. She wants to devour a human, and it has to be a human. And I like that they address that, because Lucy's like, can it be like a cow? Can we just feed you a cow? And she's like, no. Like, it has to be a human. That's just the way it is. You know how you can't eat poisonous plants, but there's all kinds of birds and critters that can eat poisonous plants no problem, because they're just built for that. And she's like, I am built to eat human meat. I need human meat. And so Lucy sees this creature that has killed her sister and has this ravenous taste for human flesh and is very uncontrollable in its urges. And is like, you know what? That's my sister. It still remembers me. I still love her. If this weren't my sister, I wouldn't feel so hung up about this. I wouldn't feel so attached to her. That is my sister, and I am going to help her. And I'm going to work with this weird parasite and get it whatever it needs and get it help and feed it and make sure that they don't send her to a mental asylum for being crazy. And likewise, the girlfriend, Katya, is also on Team Parasite, and the three of them sort of conspire together to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to feed this parasite and live their lives and get out of this situation. And so basically it is Lucy's descent into badness, where she will do anything to protect her sister, her not sister. And we see her forgive terrible things, and we see her eventually murder someone to feed her sister. And it's delicious and evil and delectable and so horror. Johanna Van Veen is so good at writing body horror. It's genuinely creepy. It's so atmospheric. Immediately on page 1, you're like, yes, Johanna Van Veen knows what she's doing. This is going to be so gothic horror. It's going to be so immersive. It's going to be so creepy. The tone is so consistent all the way through, and it's so good, and it's so well written, and it's delicious. If you want a horror novel, here you go. This would be great for like a Halloween read. This is real spooky season. Fantastic. I had almost no problems with this whatsoever. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I sat down to read this and I was like, yes, delicious, delectable, what a snack. Even though it's not gay. You know me, I read gay books. I only read books for the gayness, pretty much. This minorly gay, it just so happens that Sarah's a lesbian and has a girlfriend who isn't even that big of a character. She's really a side character. And honestly, there could be more of her at the end. I don't really get a strong sense of that character just because she's not seen that much. But even though this wasn't that gay, loved it, ate it up. I did have a problem with the vampire marketing, which I didn't even realize this was marketed as a vampire story until like after I had read it. And I had heard someone, another reviewer that I like, describe this as a vampire story. When I was like halfway through it, I happened upon someone else talking about this book. I wasn't even looking for it. But she described this as a vampire story, and I'm like, this is not a vampire story. Then I went on the Goodreads page, and it is tagged as vampires. If you are looking for a vampire story, you don't want this. This is not traditional vampires in any sense of the word. Honestly, it's more like a zombie than a vampire. And I wouldn't call it a zombie story either. I would call it's like a parasite. It's an evil parasite. It's much more biological than supernatural. But it's also, I mean, there is like a supernatural element. Like, the vibe is supernatural. The gothic horror aspect of this makes it not feel just like a sort of like dystopian biohazard kind of thing. And also, again, it's not just human blood. Like, she does drink human blood, and she does want human blood, but really she wants meat. Like, she wants to eat a whole ass person, bones and all. And that is not a vampire story, to me. Not in, like, the traditional sense. I'm sure there's some vampire story that also consumes all of the flesh. But this is not, like, feeding. Although she does do some feedings. There's a funny scene where Lucy walks in on Sarah going down on Katya, and presumably what I was assuming was happening there was that she was on her period. Like, there is blood on Sarah's face, and so she's eating out this woman on her period because she has a taste for blood, which is great. That, or like maybe she like bit into the thigh or something for me, I don't know. But like Lucy and Katya are sort of feeding her blood sometimes while they're preparing to either kill someone or, like, figure out a way to get her meat that she can eat. So, like, there is feeding, and maybe that period blood scene is, like, sort of reminiscent of vampires with, like, a sexy bit of edge to it. What a way to find out your sister is gay, by the way. The main character is not gay. She is actually in love with her sister's husband and has, like, been having an affair with him. That's a whole thing. But whatever. The main character's straight, but the sister is gay, and she discovers this by walking in on that, of all things. And, like, they don't stop because she's a parasite who's hungry, so they just, like, keep going. That's hilarious to me. I love a scene that isn't afraid to go to some weird-ass places, and that was a weird-ass scene. That, like, in a good way. But this is simply not a vampire story. People are not getting turned into vampires. I mean, I guess there's an infection element, but not in the way you think of a vampire story. This is a parasite story, and it's literally textually referred to as a parasite. And the word vampire is not used. I don't know when that term became popularized, or, like, what year this book technically takes place in. I think it's the late 1800s. Maybe it says, like, 1880s in the beginning. That could be wrong. But it's not a vampire story. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't know why it was marketed as that. And I don't know why anyone would call it that after reading it. Because it doesn't feel like a vampire story at all. If you want vampires, look somewhere else. But I liked that it wasn't a generic vampire story. I liked that this was a monster I've never really seen before. I mean, it's a parasite. The idea of a parasite taking over someone is not that new, but I liked that it had all of her memories and emotions. Like, it really did become her. And it also knew the bog body. So it had, like, taken over that bog body's life, and then that woman's husband ended up killing her and throwing her in the bog to get her away because she was not his real husband. She was not his real wife. Pronouns. And so these parasites actually don't infect that many people. I feel like with a lot of these biological-based horror stories, they're trying to infect as many people as possible. But these parasites, like, specifically says that they don't want to do that because they fully take on the emotions and memories of these people. And so, like, if you were genuinely, like, 100 people at once, like, that would be a lot going on. And so they don't want that, and they don't need that. And so they choose their hosts sort of sparingly. And I thought that was way more interesting than, like, a cliche vampire story, personally. I was also conflicted on the ending. Now, basically they just tell you what they're going to do. We don't really see it. We hear their plan, and then we get a newspaper article clipping as the very last chapter of this book that basically confirms that their plan worked. So they're just gonna run away. They end up killing Mikhail, the husband, and Lucy ends up not being in love with him after all because he was gonna put her sister in a mental institution. And she's like, I can't believe I ever loved this guy. He's kind of terrible. And was, like, sleeping with a bunch of the maids and stuff. There's some discussions about class here, if you wanted to read that, because there's one of the servants who is on team anti-parasite and is, like, trying to stop her. And, like, can, because, like, she's physically stronger because she's done manual labor. And, like, there's some discussion here about labor and the servant class. And Lucy, like, doesn't even think about them because they're just servants and they're just kind of around, and she never even really considers them. And there's a moment in one of the more climactic scenes later in the book where it's the servants who take her down because she's so focused on Mikhail and, like, these male aggressors who are, like, above her head, and she's, like, focusing on them, but it's actually the servants she never pays any attention to who end up taking her down in this moment. So there's some discussion there if you wanted to really delve into that. Anyway, Mikhail ends up taking Lucy away with the intention of putting her in this mental institution, and Lucy goes to save her and kills Mikhail, ends up killing the doctor as well, and ends up saving Lucy. Nope, ends up saving Sarah. They're twins. They're identical twins. This author is actually a triplet. And I think there was also twins in her first book, My Darling Dreadful Thing. And I think she really liked writing about bog bodies and twins or triplets and gothic horror. Those are clearly topics she is interested in, and I'm curious to see, like, how many of her books will do all of those things. And again, these first two books felt different enough, so it's not like a pure rehash where I'm like, oh, she just did the same book. It's pretty different topically. There's, like, ghosts in that other book, which is also really good, and you should read that if you liked this one. or if you like this, what it sounds like, you should go read both of these books. But anyway, they end up making a plan that they're just gonna run away together, and with Katya, they're gonna make it seem like Katya married the doctor and like eloped and they just like ran away. And then Mikhail is allegedly with them and they just like ran off and maybe got lost in the swamps. And they just kind of tell you this plan. And then it just kind of works, which is sort of anticlimactic. And I also didn't know thematically how well that worked. Like I am trying to think about what this book was trying to say. I haven't really thought about it. I haven't really let it sit with me. Because I'm a person who reads like 200 books a year and I never let any of them sit. I just read them and enjoy them as entertainment, for the most part. But a book like this that's actually really good and there actually is something to sit with, it does make me want to dwell on it and delve into what that could be. I don't know that this accomplished anything grand. I was sort of rooting for them. I was kind of team Parasite because like they're twins and they're so close and they've done all of these things for each other and they've like gone to the ends of the earth for each other, and like you can really feel the love and the connection there. But like this is a parasite and Lucy has like totally descended into something unrecognizable. She's normally just this normal person, very well put together, well respected, and she's like murdering people for her sister, and her sister's this parasite who's going to need to kill people forever to keep living. And like objectively that's not like a great thing. But it also does bring up discussions about, I mean, that's kind of how people are, you know. We kill like tons of animals to keep living, and you know, if she just lets her sister starve, then she killed her sister, you know. So I was expecting a reckoning where I thought like the parasite would try to eat her, like would get so hungry that it just couldn't stop itself from eating Lucy, and Lucy would like be okay with that sacrifice because she started doing everything for her sister. She was fine with sacrificing her life and her history and her respectability and everything for her sister. And so I thought like maybe she would get eaten as like an ending to this. I didn't really know what Katya would become because she's not that important of a character. And so the fact that she just kind of ran away with them is like, okay, whatever. I don't know. I kind of expected some consequences for Lucy completely changing her life and becoming obsessed with this, in sort of the way that Sarah became obsessed with the bog body and then died for it. I thought Lucy might die at the end of this. The ending's not very gothic horror. They just kind of like get away. Teehee. Sisters, girl power. I feel like the author didn't want anything bad to happen to these characters. Which, I mean, I kind of didn't either, because I was like, I was on their side, but I was also expecting something bad to happen, because this is a gothic horror. I don't know what I wanted out of the ending, therefore I can't say that I dislike this ending, but I also can't say that I love it. I was expecting more. I was expecting something crazy to happen and me to be like, oh my god, like of course that's the ending, or of course that fits so well, or there's like another twist here. And there wasn't. Or I also expected that maybe Lucy would also become possessed by the bog body parasite. And then like I don't know if it could do two bodies at once. I don't know how this works. Presumably it's just in one host and then it just eats people. But I think like Sarah got the infection by consuming part of the parasite. And so like what if Lucy bit Sarah and like consumed part of the parasite? And then like they were both like hive mind connected and they totally understood each other's emotions and memories and experiences, and they like fused into one creature. I think that could have been interesting if that's how it works. I mean, that could have been expanded. It also could have been something like maybe she suggested. I don't know, like, maybe not. I don't know why she would want to have to run around killing people. And also, like, trying to learn how to be human. And, like, she feels things differently. And apparently, like, her body's, like, dead, like, decomposed. And so, like, her blood's, like, still and old and weird. And they're not, like, functioning as humans. That's why I said it's kind of like a zombie story more than a vampire story. Because she is, like, a dead body, but that's being puppeted by a host. So, like, I don't know why you would want that if you were Lucy. but I don't know, something about the draw of the parasite and like becoming one, because she's so devoted to her sister. She could like literally merge minds with her sister. That would have been interesting. I don't know. I don't know what I wanted out of this ending. But I liked the book. It was cool. The vibes were awesome. The writing's fantastic. There's so many like little moments of little metaphors or similes, and there's all of these smoking guns that come back later. Like Mikhail's demeaningly giving them advice about protecting themselves. And he's like, oh, you're a small woman, so if you needed to incapacitate someone, you should go for the eyes. That'll help you in a fight and, you know, give you an advantage to run away because you're such a weak little woman. And then she ends up getting his eyes and killing him. That came back around. That was great. Things like that. The writing is just tight. It works. It's good. It's great. It's great writing. You can just sit back and enjoy it. That's why I don't have... I mean, I guess I did have a lot to say. I was gonna say I didn't have anything to say. Been recording for 33 minutes. I clearly had fucking something to say. But yeah, good book. I will be reading more Johanna Van Veen in the future. I'm excited to see how similar her next book is. And how long she can keep doing the same ideas while still making it feel different. It's kind of a challenge. I'd be totally shocked if she did something with absolutely no bog bodies. Or twins. Johanna Van Veen contemporary romance novel win. That's not happening. But I am interested to see whatever she does next. I think actually she is writing a middle grade novel that was about triplets. There's like a fantasy book. I don't know. I don't know if that's gay. I don't know if I'll read that. I like her horror stuff, so whatever. A great read for spooky season. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.